Here we have the Anthurium Big Red. This is a really interesting one as the new leaves come out very lime green and then they harden off into this really deep, dark, kind of a purple really. I might call it an Anthurium deep purple instead of deep red myself, but in any case, let's get into the care instructions for this plant. Now, you're going to need very bright light, okay? Anthurium love a nice wide view of the sky. Now, if you have a hot window, say from the south-facing or a west-facing window maybe, I would recommend backing it off that window a foot or two. You still want to make sure that if you're on the plant's perspective and you're looking out that nearest window, you can still see unobstructed sky. You don't want to be looking at your neighbor's house or a big canopy of trees or a covered patio, for example. You still want to make sure that the plant is seeing, these leaves are looking out at unobstructed sky. As far as watering goes, I want you to water when they're 25% dry during the spring and summer months. If you don't know how to gauge if it's 25% dry, I recommend watching our watering video that's also on YouTube. We have some on TikTok as well. Now, this is during their growing season. The spring and summer months is their growing season, and that's why we water them when they're about 25% dry right there. They're going to go through water a lot quicker during this time period. We have longer days, usually sunnier days as well compared to our winter months at least. So that's why it's going to go through water a little bit quicker. Now, in the winter time, they're going to go dormant. It's very common to see very little new growth. You might not even see any new growth at all during this dormancy period, which takes place from fall through winter. The days get shorter, they kind of hunker down into a little hibernation of sorts, if you want. Now during this period, we back off on watering. It's not going to go through water very quickly at all. We water them when they're 50% dry. You could even go like 75% dry if you want to. That's not the best for the plant, but you're not going to kill it by letting it dry out. You know, these types of anthuriums are a lot more drought tolerant than we give them credit for. It's not that they are drought tolerant by nature, like they're not like a succulent or a cacti, but they're tolerant to being more dry than they are being more wet. As far as repotting goes, we like to do that every 2 years, or when the roots are coming out of this bottom drainage hole here. But at least every 2 years, just to refresh the medium. Now it's important to remember when we are repotting our plants that we're only doing it during the growing season, during the spring and the summer months. Unless it's an emergency, we would want to avoid repotting during the fall and the winter months while the plant is dormant. For soil, we like to use a very chunky aeroid soil. That's 1 part houseplant soil mixed with 1 part orchid bark, mixed with 1 part perlite or cactus soil. The perlite isn't so important. We can mix it on with other things that are going to add air and drainage. Crushed granite, cactus soil, what have you. Pumice stone works really well. But mixing all those ingredients together is going to give it a nice airy chunkiness to the soil, so those roots are really getting plenty of airthrow around there, which is super important to prevent root rot. Also with anthuriums, it's important to never plant the crown. Never make the soil level higher than the crown, or never bury the crown below the soil level. That's super important. They'll rot out pretty quickly otherwise. For fertilizer, we just use a general purpose, well-balanced fertilizer throughout the growing season, throughout the spring and the summer months. Depending on which one you buy, it's going to have different instructions. So just follow the instructions that are on the fertilizer that you're purchasing. Granule or liquid soluble is perfectly fine. But that's going to do it for the care instructions for the Anthurium Big Red, Big Purple if you ask me. A really cool, neat little house plant that is very moody looking and contrasts really well if you're into decorating with these beautiful plants.